Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be replacing the adjustment rod in a Magna-Matic MAG-8200. Now, this process will be the same for any 8200 as well as the MAG-8100, as they share the same adjustment assembly components. What we'll be doing in this video is I'm going to turn the machine and get you a better view of the internals and where the threaded rod will be going into. Before we get started, I want you to be familiar with the parts we'll be interacting with in this adjustment replacement video. So on the 8200 we have a top cover that we'll have to remove along with the crank handle before we can gain access to the threaded rod. At the top of the threaded rod you'll find two 3/8 nuts, a bronze thrust washer, a wave spring washer, another bronze thrust washer, and at the very bottom a nylock nut. Off camera I've already removed the grit guard so we have better vision and access to the adjustment. This unit happens to be a belt grinder unit. I've taken off the contact wheel, the belt, and relieved the spring tension on the idler pulley so that we don't have anything pulling on the adjustment. If you have a grinding wheel unit or an 8100, you wouldn't have to do this. And you can even get at this without taking the grit guard off. However, for our video purposes, it's going to be a lot easier for you to see what's happening with the grit guard off. So the first thing we have to do is take the adjustment crank handle off. You'll use an 1/8 inch Allen head wrench. That pulls off. Next we'll need that 5/16 socket. There are 2 screws inside the yellow grinding wheel cavity and then 2 on the other side to remove this top dust cover. Now, because this is on an angle, there's an ellipse cut into this part. You'll have to first lift this up and kind of rock it back. You can't lift it straight up. Here you can see there's an ellipse in here, so lifting straight up is not possible because of the angle of the threaded rod. Now we have access and can see the whole adjustment assembly. And you can see there's a top and bottom and then the adjustment truck in the center. The adjustment truck in the center is the part that's threaded. So what we'll need to do to take this off, it's actually much easier if we put that crank handle back on. And then now we can take our 9/16 wrench, and if we hold the bottom nut and simply start unscrewing the adjustment, now you'll see here the bottom nut is now loose, and we can hold on to that with our fingers. And below you'll see we have the wave washer, and then if I unscrew a little bit further, the bronze thrust washer, the nylock nut, and the wave washer that I had showed you before. Now with the crank handle, we can simply unscrew the whole adjusted rod right out of the assembly. And remember, there is a bronze thrust washer up top as well. We'll pull that off so you can see it. Now if we get our new threaded rod, we can take our bronze thrust washer, put that on the bottom, put it through the hole on the top block, and then start threading in. Now that we've got that started, let's put the two 3/8 nuts on. They're going to be our jam nuts, so let's get them on. And they can just be loose on the threaded rod. And then next we can take our crank handle again and put that back on to make it easier. And simply crank this and keep threading it in until we see it come out the bottom. Okay, there we have about enough thread sticking out for the nylock nut. We'll get our wave washer and bronze bushing again. And the first piece to go on is the bronze bushing, then the wave washer, then the nylock nut. And again, you can use the crank to help yourself get that started. We'll hold on to the nut with the wrench here because there will be some resistance as we cut threads into that nylon. And you're just looking for the threaded rod to be flush with the end of the nylock nut. Now we'll need a 9/16 wrench again. And you'll see, of course, at the bottom, the wave washer is not yet compressed. So to put tension on that, we're going to bring one of these 3/8 nuts down on top of the thrust washer at the top, and while holding the crank, we'll start tightening this nut. And just go a little bit, take a look at the bottom, see if you've compressed that spring yet. And it should just be snug. This is something that shouldn't be cranked super tight. And then once you get that spring tight, feel the adjustment. There should be a little resistance, but it shouldn't be hard to move. Then bring down the second nut, which we'll use to jam the position that we've made. So we'll hold the bottom one and now jam the top one. And now we can test our adjustment. If you find your adjustment to be a bit tight, you can back off the top nut again, put a little bit less pressure on the bottom one, then lock that one back down again. So now we've completed installing the threaded rod into the adjustment block. We can replace the top cover, and again we have to remove the crank handle. Bring the top cover in high and then down, because again that ellipse is going to create a little interference for you. You'll have to come a little bit lower into the body. And remember also, when you're always putting the crank handle on, always line it up to the flat on the threaded rod. And now we have a nice, tight, solid adjustment, ready to grind again. That completes the replacement of the threaded rod in a MAG-8200. And again, this process is the same for the 8100. Do note that if you have an operator that has misused the sharpener, it is possible for them to crank the adjustment all the way to the top. And if they force this crank, and it does take a bit of force, if they try to keep forcing this crank for the wheel to go higher, it is possible for them to undo the nylock nut at the bottom. So if you ever come up to the machine and the adjustment is extremely loose and sloppy and things are vibrating, take a look down here to make sure that someone didn't force the crank and unscrew the nylock nut, and you may see it just sitting in the base of the machine. It is as simple as the installation we did. You don't have to take the threaded rod all the way out. You simply have to get that thrust washer on first, then the wave washer, then the nylock nut, and retighten the nuts as we did, and you'll be back up and ready to go. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call at 800-328-1110 or visit us at Magna-Matic.com. I certainly hope this helps with your installation. Thank you very much for watching.